And today, as I mentioned, we have 4 weekly topics. Today we are on week 2. So we'll be discussing customer discovery and persona building. And last week we discussed idea validation and market fit with Dylan and Jan already. So just to recap a little bit previous session. So we mentioned about problem solution fit, how to verify whether your project is really solving a real problem, not just a problem that you invented. We also mentioned how to do market analysis, how to identify your competitive advantage, how to do how much is the market cap, for example. We also validate your ideas. So how do you like use results to show like there's a validating like your idea is validated, and also what's your core value proposition of your project. So now that you validate your project, you know your direction. Now you need a plan to reach your audience. So now you need to convert your validated interest into your first customer. So that's why today in this session, we'll be talking about customer discovery and persona building. And very exciting, we have Dylan with us again. You already know him. And now we also very honored to invite Anatoly from Force Prime with us. So we will start with a fireside chat between Dylan and Anatoly, and then later we'll finish off with a presentation from Dylan.
Amazing.
Dylan,
Thank you.
do you want me
Thank
to
you.
keep on this slide, or do you want
Yeah,
to? Okay,
sure. We can actually just get rid of the sharing screen. I
perfect.
think it's just easier, then we can just have the nice little conversation here. It's great to see everyone again. See a lot of you guys getting very involved in the Telegram group, which is awesome. See some new names here as well, which is also great. And uh, yeah, so just as we're going to structure these, we'll do an AMA with founders who have experienced what we are, been through the experience of just building a company. So thank you, Anatoly, so much for just joining us today. Let's just start from the beginning. Could you just give us a little intro to you, your background, and what you're building at Force Prime?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting. Um, as a background, we as a team spent like more than 15 years in Web2 gaming before switching to Web3 and with different games on different platforms. And last 5 years we spent in Web3 building different gaming related, or today I'll say entertainment related projects, from development tools to like Web 2.5, Web 3, and full on-chain games. So yeah, variety of different projects on different blockchains,
Nice.
probably
Cool.
on literally every single blockchain.
I know that you're big into the UGC side. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, how the kind of concept of user-generated content within Force Prime, within what you were building in your suite of products, made you start thinking like, this is really what's important in the gaming space. And then when you decided to really commit to really pushing the UGC side of your business.
Yeah, so long story short, we started with Web 2.5 projects, and then we realized that, okay, it makes not much sense if you're not building a Ponzi game. Uh, so let's switch to Web 3. And then we decided, okay, what makes a game Web 3 game? And then we realized that maybe creating Web 3 novel experience is something that makes a game Web 3 game. And then we decide, okay, how can we create this novel experience? Probably if we put the full game full on chain, we can benefit from this. So we decided to put game full on chain. And then we realized that, okay, now we have our game full on chain, but how can we scale this? How can we onboard more and more users? And that's probably was the time when we joined the Alliance DAO, and they're kind of famous for consumer projects in crypto. And we started learning from them, okay, what's the best way to like build a consumer product in crypto? And what we realized is that when it basically learning and doing your research, you face that the gaming audience in crypto is really small. When I mean gaming audience is audience like where people are literally playing games, like spending hours daily playing games, and not too much people, to be honest. And we realized that, okay, we can't really scale because there is still no evidence that anyone can bring a major title to Web3 or full on chain, whatever. So the majority of the audience, if you just check the data, will show you that the majority of the audience, they don't want, we call it now internally, active entertainment stuff. They want passive entertainment, like not the best example, but Palm.Fun is passive entertainment from the game design perspective, where you do few actions and most of the time you're waiting, you're reading, but you're chatting, but you're not playing. Fantasy Top, Friend Tag, they're all on a more passive entertainment side. And we decide, okay, how can we reinvent, reimagine gaming in a way that is going to be more a passive entertainment with all these speculations online, on chain. And we decided, well, there is no way how we can do it internally. And if history is the only somehow an indicator for this, we can learn from history that highly likely it's going to be a natural selection where you have to try hundreds of different A/B tests of different mechanics, and one day you can like find something. And then it was like pretty obvious that no way we can do it as a gaming studio or a company, whatever. The only way to scale these iterations is to create something that can enable many builders, many creators. And it was clear that it should be non-technical or like not heavy technical creators that can create different passive entertainment experiences for the audience and go and test it. So basically scale these somehow. And so it wasn't like a single decision. It was probably more a chain of different learnings and different steps where we decided that, okay, we need to move this way.
Nice. No, I love the stories, and it seems like you've transformed quite a bit as you've learned new things about who you're targeting, what kind of customers you're targeting, learning new methods of experimentation. And I think that's kind of the coolest thing out there. And something that I'm always fascinated about when talking to teams is what is that version 0.1 that you built out? I'm sure it's extremely different than the version today after all the things that you've just mentioned. But what did version 0.1 look like? I think a lot of founders, a lot of people on this call are sort of at that stage where they're looking at potentially what corners they have to cut, what features they're going to have to leave out compared to what their ultimate grand vision is so that they can put out an MVP. So I'm curious, what did your version 0.1 look like? And then how did it evolve? And what did you intentionally not include so that you can test your user hypothesis?
Yeah, so when we switched to full on-chain projects and like started with Force Prime, the first version was literally the shittiest possible MVP that we were able to design. So we like decided to just make it like really fast. That was the only requirement, and we tried to throw away everything that we were able to throw away. And it was like graphics. We just bought something, the cheapest pixel set of art that was like okay for the current requirements. Then we decided to cut the scope. We cut it everything. Every single solution, idea, feature was thrown away. If it was possible to throw it away, we did it, because the trickiest thing was that you really need to test something fast, because prior to Force Prime, we shipped already on Starknet, shipped two different MVPs, and it took like something like 2-3 weeks per MVP to ship it. on the mainnet, because who cares about testnet in gaming, especially in speculations. If you want to test, you have to ship it on mainnet. So no audits, nothing. It was like really, really bad and scary MVP. But we shipped version 0. For the first project, it was 0.1, and we killed it. Then second one, we killed it. And then third one, and that's where we've seen that, okay, community loved it, people played, they posted on X, and we decided, okay, that's something, let's continue from this. So it was like the third iteration, but in total it took like 2 months before we decided, okay, we go with this MVP.
Nice. You touched on it a little bit, but I think it's really important just to nail down for everyone listening on this call. Building the simplest and cheapest MVP that you possibly can, that gets you accurate feedback on what users want. I would love to dive into that with you, why that's important, just as lessons for everyone listening here. And then maybe, and something that I think you talk about a lot, which I think is extremely important for everyone here, is the concept of experimentation and taking these ideas that you have and A/B testing them. Maybe you could dive a little bit into, how you approach a very simple MVP and then use your experiments to build out that MVP into what you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I like just a quick flashback from my past. When we had our Web2 gaming studio, we did a couple of projects where we spent more than a year building MVP, and then it failed. Everything was like flashy and genius on the paper, but the reality showed that people just don't want to play this shit. And that was pretty expensive lesson, but it was super clear that you can't really trust anyone, especially you cannot trust yourself. All your brilliant ideas could worth literally nothing, because if it's your like first project, or I don't know, like I ship more than like 30 different projects, commercial projects, and if you're building like not 20 something project, you can be really surprised that people don't really want to use something that you're building. And even if they tell you that, yeah, I love this stuff, before you have real data, before you have evidence that people really using it without any incentives, you can't really trust your assumptions. You can't trust something, and that's the trickiest thing in like startup journey or in company journey. That the only thing you really need to do in your like 0-1 stage is that you need to find something that makes sense to spend your time on. Before that, you're like highly likely, just like proven by many stats, that highly likely when you're building a company or startup, you're building something that no one will use it, or you will not be able to scale it. That's what we faced, that with Force Prime as a strategy game, we put it on hold, the development of the game itself, because it was clear that people like it, we have good traction, but we can't scale it like 100x, because the audience is just too small. So we need to find another way. And even when you see early validation, you can't be sure that you can scale this from 1 to 10 or from 10 to 100. And so, yeah, that's why, because you're like the most precious resource is your time. I really think that you have to like take care about it, and you have to be super careful on what you're wasting your time on. And yeah, that's why spend less time as you can for validation, for testing.
Nice. I feel like being a founder is 99% disappointment and 1% amazing. And that 1% is probably, makes it all worth it. And you just have many realizations where it's negative or something that can hurt your confidence. But I think if you kind of shift that mentality where having negative feedback or hearing something that isn't the ultimate path forward is actually valuable because it means you don't want to waste your time and you can learn how to pivot or shift up how you're experimenting or testing for your assumptions. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that mental standpoint where you get a lot of feedback. Some of it's negative, some of it's positive. How do you take that in and actually process that information so that you can think it through how you can fix it up in the future as well? Does that hit you mentally? How do you approach that side of being a founder?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's nobody likes when people tell you that, oh no, that's a piece of shit and I don't like this because like take PumpFun, they're making ton of money daily, but even today, I believe you can find some people who can explain you why PumpFun is a bad concept. So that's a good point. You can't really trust anyone, and you can't trust anyone neither that you're building something meaningful, nor in a way that they're trying to tell you that you're building something bad. Um, that's like a bad and a good point. So you should probably the only thing you can really trust is the data. And that's something number one, because don't be afraid to talking to people because um, when you go outside and you can pick any concept, and if you talk like with, I don't know, like 5, 10 people, maybe 9 of them will tell you something super negative. But if you talk to like 100 people, then maybe you have like 60-40 or like 80-20 and in a different split. And that's where scale matters. And if you just want to pitch your idea to a single person, you can't really trust the data. It's super clear from many angles. And that's point number one. The second point is that when people tell you something bad, you can about your project or about your idea that, oh, I see these like really bad design aspect, or people will never use it because blah blah blah. You should always recall like something like PalmFun or pick any other example where when they started, they spent like many months DMing people with zero success rate, trying to tell that that's a great idea. And people said that, no, that's not a great idea. Finally, it's a great idea. But it's very easy to like stop the very first step. So don't do it before you have data, before you have data that you really trust. And that's probably the most important point that you should really learn as a founder. You should learn and polish your skill on evaluating the data. Because when a random, if I go and pitch Dylan the current concept, and he tells me like, that's a great concept. Is it like a bad or a good sign? It's like neutral sign because if I go to my mentors in Alliance and pitch it, if they tell it that's a bad concept, maybe that's not something that I really love to hear as a human being. But finally, if I have the data that my vision shows me that, or this data shows that that's something you should test, you should go and test it because nobody knows, because it's very clear that there is no single, I don't know, like technology or a guideline to build successful companies. Because if anyone will have this guideline, he or she will keep building these super successful companies every single week. And it's not happening. And because of that, it's random. So you just can find some insights, and then it's like in crypto, you find some alpha, and then you have to go and test it. And that's the only thing that matters, because you should expect that for any super successful idea or a company, you like by design, you will hear at least 20% super negative, shitty feedback just by design, because people are designed that way. So don't expect positive feedback, but use it as something where people, you just like have free, I don't know, like analysts working for you, trying to find what you've missed in your concept. And that's super helpful when you're thinking about that, this in that way. So people, like angry people, just work for you and trying to find something that you missed, and that's good. You can just improve your concept. Just pick this feedback, learn something, and move next.
Awesome. So one last question, and then we'll close it out. What is one operational or strategic choice that you made early on that seemed pretty minor at the time, but ended up actually paying a massive amount of dividends to where you are today? And is this something that other founders or other entrepreneurs can bring as well and learn from your experiences?
I think that probably two key aspects are, don't fall in love with your idea. That means build shitty MVPs and throw them away once you see some data that's not something that you expected. And the second one is be concise. Basically, push it to the limit, because you will be super surprised that if you pick like 100 companies and check them within like 6 months, even 3 months, but let's keep it 6 months. Maybe like less than 10 will still be there. Not because of the market, something, just because people can't keep going for like long term. And if you can keep going long term, even small steps, you'll be like top 10% already just by keep going. And then you can add to these 10% something extra and be like 1%. But 90% will be just from building daily, small steps every day. And keep it simple at the very beginning. Keep it like shitty and simple, just to be able to keep it concise. Yeah.
Yeah. An MVP isn't meant to be something beautiful. Get something out there. Let people have real feedback on it. Let them use it, see
Yeah.
if it works for them. Anatoly, honestly, every time I speak with you, I learn something new. And I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your experiences as you grew up as a founder. And I think your insights are very good on not just how to ship, but what to ship and when to ship it. And I think those, so a lot of your insights there just kind of go into those key aspects of what it means to be a real founder and to build something that people actually want to build and continue on that journey. Um, I'll leave you. Any final comments that you'd like to make? Where can we find you? And thank you so much for joining here.
Yeah, sure. So like if you have any questions on building consumer product in Web 2 or Web 3, you can DM me on X or on Telegram. I have the same handle. So feel free to DM me and ask any questions. I'm trying to like help people at any time.
Nice. And Anatoly's Twitter is included in the chat. It is proof of Joker, all one word, proof of Joker. So look into it. He's a great source. Just super thank you, huge thank you, Anatoly, for joining us today to just give your insights. Um, Appreciate it, and yeah, excited to be on the journey with you and be just a small part in sharing my feedback as well on what you're building. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for inviting, and thanks for hosting this Basecamp and doing all these meaningful small things for founders, because I know that's super valuable. especially early stage.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope everyone's getting a lot of insight here. Well, thank you, Anatoly. For everyone else, we're gonna stay on. I'm gonna do a quick little customer discovery lesson so we can go through some frameworks, some actionable insights for you guys to take away and bring into your project as well. So Anatoly is awesome. You guys should give him a follow. He's excellent. Let me share my screen. So I'm gonna go through this presentation. Feel free to ask questions. Um, Feel free to ask questions. We can also have questions after this presentation if you'd like, but feel free to jump up, throw them in the chat. It's easy. Okay, perfect. So my main thing here is I just, Tutun really gave a very good opening of what we're trying to achieve here with this session of customer discovery. So just a quick recap. If session one was about validating that you have a real problem worth solving, today is really about taking that validation and turning it into, your customers. We're going to be moving on from is this a problem to how do we reach the people who have this problem and convert them, and then further validate the ideas at the same time. So let's quickly just recap. I think maybe there's something, but just very quickly, I'll recap the first session that Sutung did. He verified that their solution addresses a real problem, and now you need a plan to reach your audience. So what exactly is customer discovery? At its core, it's really just about talking to users before you build anything substantial. Pretty simple. We're not pitching we're not pitching our product or running a sales demo. We're investigating. Customer discovery is just this structured process where you, as the founder, become a detective. You're formulating hypotheses, and then you're going out to interview real people to see if you are right about your hypothesis. You need to learn their needs, pains, and real behavior. Notice I said real behavior, not what people say they'll do, but what they'll actually do. And I think the methods are pretty straightforward. One-on-one interviews, watching how people actually work, and then having informal discussions that reveal unexpected insights. Your goal is to validate that a meaningful problem exists, and then you're going to learn what customers truly want. So here's the golden rule. Start with a learn first mindset. Whether you're building a B2B SaaS company or Web3 marketplace, it's the same core concept. Find out early if people care before you invest heavily in building. This is the direct follow up to the first session of ideation and validation. So I have 4 guiding principles to get you the most out of your customer discovery. Always be problem, not solution focused. Fall in love with the problem. This is something that Anatoly was saying as well. Uh, Fall in love with the problem first, not your product itself. If you lead with your solution, you'll only end up hearing what you want to hear. So stay in the problem space initially and understand their needs before you even talk about your solutions. Listen 80% of the time and talk the remaining 20% of the time. These conversations should be like research. They shouldn't be pitches. Let the users, let the people you're interviewing tell you their story. The more they talk, the more you end up learning. So resist the urge to pitch. I know it's great to hear the sound of your voice, but that's not the point of these conversations. Third, ask open-ended and specific questions. I want you to really prompt them for real experiences. So for example, tell me about the last time X happened, rather than asking for hypothetical questions. You want to have concrete facts about behavior, not just guesses or flattery. And then finally, I want you to embrace the concept of iteration and learning. Treat each conversation as an experiment. You likely will not get everything right on the first try, and that's expected. So learn and adapt. Discovery is truly just a concept of ongoing iterative loops. It's not a one and done task. So, how do you actually avoid the bad interviews? And what are the biggest mistakes that will actually ruin how you are going through your customer discovery process? The first one is no leading or hypotheticals. As I mentioned before, do not ask things like, would you pay for an app that does X? It'll prompt people to say, I don't know, sure, maybe. And that's a false positive. You want to actually ask about real user behavior. The second one, The second mistake is don't rely on family and friends. It's tempting. They're easy. They're nice to you, but they're also biased because they're nice to you. So always go 1 degree out for honest, unbiased input from people who don't care about being nice to you and will tell you what their actual feedback is. Fight confirmation bias. This is a big one. Ask what's wrong with your idea and actively seek discomforting evidence. If everyone loves your idea, you're probably asking the wrong questions. And then number 4, get enough data for pattern recognition. If you're interviewing just 3 to 4 people and assuming you have enough, that's wrong. You need to interview enough people to actually spot patterns. And often that's 30 interviews to start. So don't generalize from an anecdote or two and cast a wider net. The quality of your insights really do kind of depend entirely on the quality of your questions. Here's my little framework. We just went into it. It's another way of putting it: open-ended and specific. That's the one I really want to focus on. Ask questions that prompt a detailed story. Walk me through the last time this happened is a good way of getting them into a narrative mode, and that's where the real insights live. Uh, Always keep asking why. Dig into the root causes, their constraints, their motivations. Why was that hard? Or why do you do it that way? And I think those questions actually reveal what problems are actually worth solving. I mentioned this on the last 2 slides. No hypotheticals. Focus on their past and present behavior. How do you handle it today is much better than would you use. And then just always, in general, anchor in the details. Look for the specifics, the times, the tools used, the people involved, the consequences of their actions. And I think those details really separate the real problems from imaginary ones. I just have a core sample questions that get people talking about their actual experiences. These are pretty much inspired by just general books like the Mom Test and just more experienced founders playbooks. I'll break down a couple of them because I think they kind of opens up a nice little discussion. Uh, what challenges do you face with X? And I think this opens up the problem space quite a bit. How do you currently deal with or manage X today? I think this one reveals their current solutions and their workaround. Why is solving this problem important to you? Which gets to their motivation and their priority. What is the hardest part about doing that? Which identifies the real pain points. Why is it hard? It allows you to really drill down into the pain point where you find out the core problem. We have a couple other ones. I would suggest taking a look at them, really understanding the frequency, the impact, the competitive landscape, and what they've tried in the past that hasn't worked. These are sample questions. It's not a direct, strict script. It's a guide. In practice, you'll kind of be able to manage and follow the conversation's flow, but I do want to just make sure that you're thinking through, opening up the problem space, understanding their current solutions, understanding their frequency and impact of the problem, and showcasing and being able to understand where you can be better than the alternative that they currently have right now. And finding the right interviewees is pretty as important as asking the right questions. You want to get high signal feedback, which really only comes from people who truly experience a problem. So, what I want to say about that: fish where the fish are. You're not going to go fishing in a lake that has no fish. That makes sense, right? So go to the places where your target users actually hang out. For a B2C or a marketplace, this could be online forums, it could be subreddits, it could be local meetups, it could be a Discord community. Just be where your potential customers already are. Leverage your referrals. Treat each interview as a bridge to the next one. Ask at the end of each interview, who else do you know that struggles with this? It's common and I think expected. People want to help you. Like that is something, people are nice generally. And being able to walk out with some new context after every chat is great. And I think these warm intros from peers improve the response rates. So you're not just sending out cold emails randomly. And then finally, mix the sample up. Include a diverse range of customers in your target audience. I don't want you just targeting one type of person. when you're actually in these conversations, I want you to listen for four key signals. Their pain language, which means I want you to really listen for the exact words they use to describe their pain. I think this will end up becoming your marketing copy a little bit later on as well. Then the second one is workarounds and hacks. If they are doing a do-it-yourself project, that means that there actually is urgency and a willingness to act on a solution. If they've been able to cobble up together a solution, they'll probably pay for a better one. Then again, I was mentioning this earlier, but this is so important. It's the frequency and impact. How often does this pain happen? How much time, how much money, how much stress does it actually cost them? And this will tell you how much they'll pay to solve it. Is this a real problem that is worth solving? And then finally, and this is about being able to manage a conversation. If they look for their emotional spikes, if they're frustrated, if they're excited at any point, highlight when they're what they're talking about, because that's what really truly matters to them. If they're just talking very monotone and then they get extremely excited about one thing or they get very frustrated about another thing, that will indicate some type of prioritization in their own mind that you should be noting on your side. So, once you've actually done a bunch of these interviews, how do you turn that raw insight into concrete decisions and next steps? The first deliverable is your problem statement. This is essentially your definition of the customer's problem in a single sentence or a short paragraph. This is much harder than it actually sounds because it forces you to be very clear and crystallize the user and their need. Then, after that, you should be using this to communicate with your team, advisors, and even investors to show that you truly understand your customer's pain. And then what I want you to do is create a risk ledger. This is just a fancy term for basically a list of all things that are keeping you up, that you're assuming or betting on. Basically, every startup has to make assumptions, and discovery helps surface them. I want you to write out these assumptions. In a B2B SaaS, an assumption might be something like IT managers will be likely to adopt a new tool despite their busy schedule. Um, List them because once they're written out, you can methodically test them. We sometimes categorize them, assumptions about the customer, about the problem itself, about the solution, about willingness to pay. Um, and then once you get this taken care of, I want you to focus on prioritization. You cannot test everything at once. So focus on the biggest risk first. I think a pretty classic framework is to just verify first, is the problem real and important? Then two, does a viable customer segment really have this problem and will they behave in a way that supports the business? And then three, what's the landscape of alternatives or competition? For instance, maybe your interviews reveal that users do have the problem, but they're solving it with an Excel macro, for example. So that's your competition, and that's a good market insight to have. Um, Once you've actually identified your riskiest assumptions, I want you to design experiments. I put together a little framework. If X, then Y, by delta and T because R. I put the things here. X is just really the proposed change or action. It's your independent variable. Y is the target outcome metric, which is your dependent variable. Delta is the expected magnitude of change. T is the time frame for observing the change, and R is the rationale, why you expect this result, and that should be grounded in user theory, user research or theory. I want you to really think about how you write hypotheses in structured ways to make sure that they are clear, testable, and grounded in reasoning. Essentially, I want you to treat this like the scientific method. You hypothesize, you experiment, you measure, and then you make a conclusion based on that. And remember, even a negative result, something like nobody clicks it or nobody signs up, that is still valuable insight. It saves you from a false path and directs you to adjust either the idea or how you're communicating it. So as you run these experiments, I want you to really focus on these core validation signals. Repeated pain. If you hear the same problem over and over in your discovery interview, that means that there is good potential for market size. Is there evidence of demand? Customers start taking action beyond just talking. They sign up, they do betas, they have letters of intent, pre-orders, whatever it is, calendar bookings. There's some evidence there of demand. Early traction, which is a step above that. Users come back unprompted and they actually refer others. That's the biggest validation sign of organic behavior. And then tighter pull, conversations end up converging on specific use cases and features. When different customers are asking for the same thing, that's generally a good sign of validation. So I'll leave you with 5 action items. Schedule customer discovery interviews. There is absolutely no substitute for direct conversation, so start reaching out to potential customers today. Prepare open-ended questions and have a mindset to listen. Always come prepared, but stay flexible. Number 3, after each conversation, write down a 1-sentence problem statement to force clarity and help you spot patterns. Number 4, jot down the riskiest assumptions that emerge from your conversations and then design experiments to test them. Do not let assumptions sit untested. 5, make it a habit and keep interviewing as you build. Customer discovery doesn't end when you start building, it only intensifies. And remember, the goal isn't to validate your idea, it's to understand your customers so deeply that building the right solution is just an obvious kind of conclusion.